Speaking of things we can't ignore, back on Biden. So Biden is being Biden, right? So we all knew that Biden was a centrist Democrat. We all knew that Joe Biden, was a longtime U.S. senator, voted for the war in Iraq, and, stalwart, dedicated supporter of the American empire. And here we see, just the other day, the first real act of aggression, military aggression by the Biden administration just the other day. Biden ordered airstrike after determining Iran supported rocket attacks. The attacks and retaliatory strike marked the first major military action of the Biden administration. This is in Politico. Biden did an airstrike in Syria. President Joe Biden's decision to order a U.S. airstrike on a border crossing used by Iran-backed militia groups in eastern Syria on Thursday came after U.S. officials determined Tehran facilitated a series of recent attacks endangering Americans in Iraq, according to defense officials. So, let's just read a bit more. Planning for a potential military response began soon in February when a dozen rockets targeted coalition forces outside Erbil International Airport, killing one non-U.S. contractor and wounding 9 more people, including 5 Americans, according to one of the officials. Apparently, Russia was given minutes' notice. Keep in mind that the U.S. and Russia, because we're in basically a reboot of the Cold War, it seems, with Russia. They are once again fighting proxy wars through countries in the Middle East, like Syria. Russia is backed Assad. Of course, the United States has been backing, the anti-Assadist, militias out there and the rebels. And let's see, and of course, ISIL or ISIS has gotten into the mix out there as well. Russia says U.S. gave only a few minutes warning before strike in Syria. Russia was given only 4 to 5 minutes. This is from Lavrov. This is the guy Trump was laughing with in the Oval Office. But he said the warning came too late to reduce the risk of a potential clash between the two countries' forces. Let's see. I saw some reporting that said up to 22 dead. The numbers are a bit here and there, but let's see. And I'm glad to see. So here's the thing about this airstrike in Syria. This was because it was a retaliation for missiles launched by Iran at targets in Iraq. Biden thought it made sense to reply and have a whatever response in Syria. So basically, this whole area of the Middle East is the battleground now for Biden and for the administration, for the American empire, which is something that exists, despite whatever political party is in power. The American empire remains, the military empire that is the United States remains, intact and always, strong and worldwide. So let's see. The Biden administration tried to characterize this as an act of self-defense, bombing these militia, facilities in Syria, which again, we have yet to declare war there, or any situation of any type. Congress has not approved the 1,000 troops that are on the ground in Syria, and Trump dropped bombs on Syria, so now Biden is doing it too. And here it's nice to see at least some Democrats doing something, and you could call these centrists. So look here, Democrats renew push for war powers overhaul after Biden's Syria strike. Offensive military action without congressional approval is not constitutional absent extraordinary circumstances, Kaine said. It's Tim Kaine. Wasn't he, I think Kaine was Hillary's vice presidential pick, right? And you never heard of him before, and you haven't heard of him since until now. on political pain. The Biden administration is taking heat from fellow Democrats as lawmakers pressure the White House to provide a legal justification for an airstrike launched Thursday against Iran-backed militia groups in Syria. The White House is pledging to provide a classified briefing early next week, argued the airstrike was consistent with Biden's constitutional authority to defend the U.S. or do whatever he wants. But the attack has given new ammunition to lawmakers who want to roll back broad presidential war powers. And, it's interesting that two Senate war powers critics, Democrats Tim Kaine of Virginia and Chris Murphy of Connecticut, argued Friday that lawmakers need to know why President Joe Biden ordered the attack without first consulting them. Quote, the American people deserve to hear the administration's rationale for these strikes and its legal justification for acting without coming to Congress, said Kaine, who sits on the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee. Offensive military action without congressional approval is not constitutional. Absent extraordinary circumstances, he added, Congress must be fully briefed on this matter expeditiously. I mean, it's not only unconstitutional, it's against international law. So this is clearly Biden flexing, saying, I can do what I want. I'll do whatever I want. I'm the president. He can't with a pen swipe away $50,000 in student loan debt, but he can bomb some people, right? In Syria in retaliation for something that happened in Iraq, right? See if he can fall. So the whole Middle East is his playground, essentially, to drop missiles, send missiles. Now, Valor said American Empire, LOL. Not fun. It's not laugh out loud, Valor. I'm not putting you on the spot or anything, but it's not laugh out loud. Look at this map. U.S. military bases abroad 2020. These are, and look at where most of them are concentrated. See if I can get the zoom working on here. Would you look at that? Coincidence? So, the large stars are our largest military bases, and the not as large ones are still full military bases, and then the little dots are small ones, and then there's naval fleets as well. But look at this. Look at the Middle East. We have military bases in Greece, Turkey, Georgia, Syria, 4+ in Syria, Israel, Iraq, 6+ in Israel, or in Iraq rather, Afghanistan, 8+, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, Cyprus, Tunisia, just everywhere, all across. Let's see, Azores, all these across Africa. We have smaller ones, Saudi Arabia. We have 11 bases in Saudi Arabia. Qatar, 3 in the UAE, 12 in Bahrain, 12, 6 in Oman, 10 in Kuwait. Guys, this is astounding. 13 in Turkey. We have 13 bases in Turkey. So this is the American Empire. Valor says he's making clear. I was thinking of us as the Empire in Star Wars. Yeah, exactly. And this was one of the few ways that, it's funny. Trump, he presented himself as this isolationist, anti-war, criticized Iraq, but funnily enough, some Trump supporters, in an attempt to wash his image after all of this, after just the shame of the Trump years and the Trump administration, tried to say he didn't start any wars, bro. How many wars did he start? How many wars? Well, he dropped missiles on Syria, put boots on the ground in Syria, supported the Saudi Arabia's genocide in Yemen. He very clearly he dropped the Moab on Afghanistan, the mother of all bombs. Claimed he was going to end the war, didn't do that. There was 30-some soy nut farmers, pine nut rather farmers, who were drone striked by Trump. Just a bunch of guys on break from, harvesting pine nuts, obliterated in the blink of an eye. Tell them, oh yeah, Trump didn't start any wars, bro. Get out of here with that noise. It's ridiculous. And this is one thing where, Biden and, I mean, there are plenty on the left who are even saying, well, Bernie wouldn't be any better either, that he would be just as a hawk. Whatever, man. I mean, if you really want to say so. But, Biden has bristled at the accusation that he's not appointing a progressive cabinet. We've had the most progressive cabinet. And that's just because he's appointed people of color. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're necessarily progressive. Like the Secretary of Defense is a black man, but he was also Raytheon lobbyist, or maybe I can't remember exactly in what capacity he worked for Raytheon, but Raytheon, and he's military. So the Secretary of Defense has traditionally been a civilian, and he put that in the hands of this former military on the dole for Raytheon guy. This tweet was passed around quite a bit. Don't you love logging on Twitter and seeing your country being bombed by the United States? At least the cabinet is diverse. That makes it so much better. That guy's from Syria. Yeah. And here's an article from Jacobin. Jacobin is very far left. I mean, there are socialists, the socialist Marxists, right? The Biden administration bombed Syria before raising the minimum wage. I mean, I understand that comparison. But at the same time, like, I think we could just stand against bombing people on principle. We don't have to bring in our own self-interests here on the ground in the United States. Like, bro, can you wait to bomb Syria after we get our minimum wage? I mean, I know that's not the point. That's a little disingenuous. I'm just joking here, but it's not that funny thing to joke about. So, again, this is the American empire. If you paid attention to anybody on the left, Noam Chomsky, Naomi Klein, anybody, Howard Zinn, anybody worth their salt, this has been subject number one. America is an empire. If you stand in its way, you will get just obliterated. Let's see. Yesterday was a day of cognitive dissonance. President Biden, 1 month into his term, greenlighted the first military action of his administration, the airstrikes in Syria. The administration claims required no congressional vote because they were deploying, quote, self-defense. Self-defense, bro. They're coming at me, bro. Even though the action was in response to the targeting of U.S. occupying forces in Iraq and Syria. The airstrikes themselves should not come as a surprise to anyone who has followed Biden's long career as a foreign policy hawk, albeit a hawk acting under the cover of liberal interventionism. Syria, a perfect case in point, using the legitimate outrage against Bashar al-Assad's genocidal policies to justify an intervention that only leads to more human suffering and a bigger geopolitical footprint for the U.S. military. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, and then they go into the minimum wage debate, which we talked about, and I mean that's something, folks. I mean, this is back to normal. When Biden said nothing will fundamentally change, we're going to go back to normal. This is normal for America, unfortunately. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way, but this is the country we live in, and when people, I believe, aren't just attacking the squad, for their own, to juice their YouTube numbers or to, for any other of more nefarious or gross impulses. One of the bigger criticisms that is deserved is that the foreign policy that they have is lacking. That Bernie's foreign policy might have been lacking. He really did focus exclusively on, domestic policy, especially in 2016, and, did a bit more of his homework in 2020. And it definitely was progressive. He mentioned the Palestinians, said, I think they deserve to be treated like human beings and have a seat at the table, right? Which was historic up to that point. We never even heard a U.S. presidential candidate, probably even, say the Palestinians' name, with any positivity, with any human, respect. But this is what we expected. I believe I put in the title of this, Biden being Biden, or Biden does what Biden does, because Biden was a part of the vote for the war in Iraq. Biden was, liberal interventionism. This, the Fukuyama idea of the end of history, that, the U.S. is just this, world police that is going to take care of everybody with all of its bombs and missiles and drones and, high-tech military for hire, as it were. And keep in mind that, the aggression against these troops included like contractors, because through neoliberal policy, so much of the function of our military is now privatized. We contracted it out. Yeah, well, we forget that a bunch of these people are like literally Dick Cheney is CEO of Halliburton, leaves to become vice president, and Halliburton gets no bid contracts in Iraq. Right? We can't have Medicare for all, because, it's going to cost trillions of dollars. How are you going to pay for it, Bernie? Iraq has cost us trillions and trillions of dollars. Just Iraq, not even Afghanistan. The global war on terror did nothing but, I guess, solidify or, turn basically. I mean, that was the whole point of the global war on terror, was now you're at war with the whole world. Terrorism could exist anywhere. Right? It could exist in any country at any time. That's why Biden feels justified. Hey, man, what are you doing? This is what we do now. We got to fight everywhere. Come on, man. I mean, that's just basically, that's just SOP, standard operating procedure. That's what SOP means, Ryan, by the way. So that's my rant on that. I think it's disgusting, and you ain't ever going to hear me making excuses. Earlier I was arguing for clarity and precision about the immigration situation, but you ain't ever going to hear me make excuses for the American empire and the military-industrial complex. Wrong channel if you're looking for anything like that.